This video takes a look at Unit 4.1, Theory of Comparative Advantage. It's a higher level topic, primarily found in paper 3. You remember back when you sort of started talking about Adam Smith and classical free market economics, there was this idea of specialization. And at that time, we were really talking about individuals, workers, specializing in things that they are better at or relatively better at. And as a consequence, they were able to earn a higher income and benefit other people as well. Well, the same principle applies to countries. And Adam Smith, keep the context in mind. Adam Smith and David Ricardo, when they developed the theories of absolute and comparative advantage, were really trying to justify the free market competitive approach to the global economy. So the principle of comparative advantage looks at countries specializing to some extent in the goods in which they've got a relative advantage over everybody else. Right? So it's a bit different to absolute advantage, which was Adam Smith's sort of model, where he just looked at countries who are more efficient than another country, so specializing in the things that you are absolutely good at. This was a more realistic model, actually. The comparative advantage model comes from David Ricardo. Now, you can present it numerically in lots of different ways. And what I'm going to do here is just take you through one example of a situation with two countries, anywhere in some land, making bicycles and boots. So this is their production possibility. They have a choice. They could make, with all their available resources, 150 anywhere area can make 150 bicycles, or they can use all their resources to make boots, and then could make 300. Some land can make 100 bicycles and 300 boots. Now, what you'll notice about this is that anywhere area has the absolute advantage in making bicycles. They can make more. Some land doesn't have an absolute advantage in anything. Okay, for boots, it's both the same. You can show it that anywhere area has the absolute advantage in both, but this method is slightly more simple to show the sort of final principles. Now, what you're expected to be able to do is to draw a production possibility frontier. Keep it simple, straight line one here. So for bicycles and boots, anywhere is the top line, showing their bicycles and their boots. They could just do all bicycles, no boots. They could do all boots and no bicycles, or any combination in between along their production possibility line. And the same is true for some land here. Some land's inside the production possibility frontier of anywhere area. So now this idea of comparative advantage looks at opportunity cost. So if we go back to our example, anywhere area can produce 150 bicycles or 300 boots with their current resources. So therefore, if they use all the resources to make bicycles, they make 150, they will not make any boots at all. They give up 300 boots. That's the opportunity cost of making the 150 bicycles. So we could narrow it down just to look at the cost of one bicycle, therefore. Every time they make one bicycle, the opportunity cost is going to be 2 boots that they no longer make. 150 bicycles, 300 boots. And this whole idea of comparative advantage is the country with the lowest opportunity cost in making a good is said to have the comparative advantage in making that particular product. So if we fill in the blanks here, the opportunity cost of producing one bicycle is 2 boots in any area, and it would be 3 boots in some land. So of the two, you can make a comparison, sort of relative. Anywhere area has the comparative advantage in producing bicycles because it's got the lowest opportunity cost. So if we just turn it around, the opportunity cost of producing one boot is half a bicycle in anywhere area, and it's a third of a bicycle in some land. So some land suddenly has the comparative advantage in producing boots. So it's relatively better than anywhere area making boots. It doesn't have the absolute advantage, but it can claim to have the comparative advantage in making boots because they lose fewer bicycles for every boot that they make compared to anywhere area. Now, in order to make the comparison, the situation before and after, let's sort of imagine the country is self-sufficient, so there's no trade whatsoever. And they spend half their time on their producing bicycles and half the time making boots. Right? So that's the case. We just halve the production possibilities. Anywhere it will make 75 bicycles. And it's not an or now, it's an and. They will also make 150 boots. Some land will make 50 bicycles and 150 boots. Total, the world total here, 125 bicycles, 300 boots. So if we mark that on our production possibilities, we find these 2 points. There's one here, that's for any area, and there's one here for some land. They could have been anywhere on this production possibility frontage, doesn't really matter, but it sort of shows a point about halfway down. Right? So we want to try and develop the model so that we can show that we can do better than that. We can specialize using this theory and get a better outcome. So if the countries specialise completely in the production of the product in which they've got a comparative advantage, we said any area, focus on bicycles, they'll do 150. They won't do any boots at all now, right? So they're not doing anything on the boot front. Some land don't do any bicycles, they're not very good at it relative to any area, but they will make 300 boots. Okay, so obviously now they've specialised, they need to trade. And to trade, we need to find a mutually beneficial exchange rate, because they're going to have to sort of exchange these products one for the other. We have got, we can go this far and just say, look, we've ended up with a better situation because we've got now 150 bicycles and we didn't have that many before when they were self-sufficient. We've got the same number of boots, but even so, we are better off as a world. But it's nice to just take it a little bit further and choose a mutually beneficial exchange rate, which would be this one. One bicycle is 2.5 boots. I'll show you why later. It's acceptable for both parties. So when I talk about being mutually beneficial, it's acceptable to both, because it's acceptable for any area because they will only get 2 boots for one bicycle domestically. And now with trade, they get 2.5. So they're better off with the trade. It's also acceptable for some land because they would have to give up 3 boots to get a bicycle. Remember, they are specialising in boots. But now with trade, they only have to give up 2.5. So as long as the exchange rate lies between the opportunity cost ratios for the two countries, then it'll be mutually beneficial. So the one bicycle has to be between 2 and 3 boots. So I've just chosen 2.5. It have to be as long as it was between those two. So if we now trade, and again I've just chosen a possible trading scenario, some land is going to trade 150 boots. Remember, they've got 300 to exchange, so they're going to exchange 150 of them. So they're going to give 150 boots to any area, sell them, and they'll be left with 150 of their 300 that they made. Okay? So how many bicycles are going to get in return? Well, at that exchange rate, they will get 60 bicycles in return for those boots, leaving any area who had made 150 with 90 bicycles left. Right? So that's advantageous to both countries. We can show it on the production possibility frontier that the new combination for any area is here. Right? They push themselves beyond their current position, and similarly for some land as well, they've moved to here, their new combination, and again they push themselves beyond. And we could go even further and just say, look, there were a number of other combinations they could have had. To any area could, with their 150 bicycles, they could have sold a number of different combinations and ended up anywhere on this new, try and draw it straight, production possibility frontier. It goes on from this point, but because we've got a limit of 300 boots that some land have made, I'll make it a dotted line after this point because it's sort of more hypothetical. And some land with their 300 boots, I mean, they could have sold any combination they wanted. They could have kept them all for themselves, or they could have sold some, like we said before, at this exchange rate of 1 to 2.5. Well, they could have sold all of them and ended up here if they'd wanted to, but they didn't. They chose this point, but any one of these points on this production possibility frontier would have been a possible outcome for them. So either way, what we've done is we've shown that free trade, specialisation, comparative advantage enables countries to become better off because they can push their production possibility frontiers to the right and end up getting more of all goods and services. So when we introduce the terms of trade, the principle of comparative advantage will only benefit both countries if they specialise, first of all, two things. They specialise according to their comparative advantage, and then secondly, the exchange rate needs to lie between the opportunity cost ratios. That's quite an important point. When you come on to look at development economics in the second half of global economy, you'll find situations where free trade has been encouraged for developing countries, but actually they're disadvantaged because the exchange rate doesn't lie between the opportunity cost ratios of the two. Okay.